Greetings, everyone. There's an interesting couple of verses in Esther chapter 4, verses 13 and 14 that I would like to talk with us about for just a few moments. They read like this from the New Living Translation. Mordecai told them to reply to Esther, "Do not think that in the king's palace you will escape any more than all the other Jews. For if you keep silence at such a time as this, relief and deliverance will rise from the Jews from another quarter, but you and your father's family will perish. Who knows? Perhaps you have come to royal dignity for just such a time as this." With these two verses in mind, I would reason with us for just a few moments from the thought, it's your time. Let me ask you some serious questions. Does God have a special calling on your life right now? Is God calling you to a special task at this moment in your life? Do you ever feel that constant tugging on you to come out of your comfort zone and launch out into the deep for the Lord? Well, in the book of Esther, Haman, the enemy of God's people, positioned himself before the king in such a way that, following Haman's advice, the king issued a decree that on a certain date, all the Jews in every province were to be killed. There were two seemingly insignificant individuals, Mordecai and Esther, who realized that it was their time to step forward and do what needed to be done. After the decree to kill the Jews was issued, Mordecai and Esther could have despaired, decided to save only themselves, or just waited for God's intervention. Instead, they saw that God had placed them in their position for a purpose. So they seized the moment and they acted. When it is within our reach to save others, we must do so. In a life-threatening situation, don't withdraw, behave selfishly, wallow in despair, or wait for God to fix everything. Instead, ask God for God's direction and act. God may have placed you where you are right now for just such a time as this. Now, be mindful that God is not specifically mentioned in the book of Esther, but it is obvious that Mordecai expected a divine deliverance. While the book of Esther does not mention God by name or title, God's presence fills the pages. Esther and Mordecai believed in God's care, and because of that, they realized they needed to act and act now. God used them to save God's people. When you face challenges in life, seek to know what God wants you to do and then do it, confident that God will do God's part. You don't know ahead of time how God will accomplish God's will. Just trust God and prepare to be surprised by the ways God demonstrates God's trustworthiness. Esther risked her life by coming before the king. Her courageous act gives us a model to follow in approaching difficult or dangerous tasks. Like Esther, we can, first of all, calculate the cost. Esther realized her life was at stake. Secondly, set priorities. She believed that the safety of the Jewish race was more important than her own life. And thirdly, prepare. She gathered support and she called for a fast. And fourthly, determine a course of action and move ahead boldly. Notice, if you will, that Esther didn't think too long about it, allowing the interlude to lessen her commitment to do what she knew she had to do. Do you have to face a hostile audience, or confront a friend on a delicate situation, or talk to your family about changes that must be made? Rather than dreading difficult situations or putting them off, take action with confidence by following Esther's inspiring example. There's no question that God has a calling on all of our lives. The question is, are you claiming God's will for your life? Perhaps that call is not exactly what you had hoped for or even wanted, and you move yourself to the sidelines and align yourself with those who are naysayers and fault finders. Perhaps you feel that you're not adequately prepared or even qualified for what you feel God wants you to do. In the face of those things that sometimes make you question what you perceive as God's call on your life, are you seriously considering God's will for your life? In spite of the obstacles, in the face of the impediments, in the depth of the disappointment, and in the aftermath of the discouragement, I would encourage you to claim God's will for your life. Who knows? Perhaps God has placed you, yes, you, where you are right now for just such a time as this. It's your time, my beloved. It's your time. God bless you.